S2000 is everything a good Honda should be, everything good sports car should be, and everything you think fast cars are supposed to be when you close your eyes and forget for a moment about V8s and torque and all that other stuff. There's something ultimately very cheery about an S2000. This is a happy car, but it's also a car of two personalities. On the one hand, you have a relatively docile, tame four-cylinder. Goes from idle to about 5.5, 6,000 RPM. Doesn't really have much to say. It's not slow. It's not really quick either. On the other hand, when you drop it down a gear, get into the top half of the cam, it's great. That dual personality is common with Honda fast cars. They've always wanted their fast sedans and hatchbacks and sports cars to be tame and ordinary around town and not ask much of you. But then when you really need it, to wake up and come alive. Part of the joy of an S2000 is how it does that. It feels so purposeful, but when you need it to be an ordinary car, when you need the air to work, the heat to work, you need the top to just go up and enclose you from the rest of the world so you can get through your commute, it does that. The basics here are great. Steering is electrically assisted, but it's linear, has a lot of feel. All the controls are direct, they have a lot of feedback, but it doesn't bombard you with information. It gives you just enough to let you get the most out of the car when you want to. And when you don't, it drops back into the background. The shifter is probably one of the greatest shifters ever installed in any car, modern or vintage, right? It's short throw, it's slick. The synchros almost suck the lever into place when you get a shift right, which is great because the car makes you want to drive it harder. As calm and docile and tame as it is around town, everything about it makes you want to lean on it, and the more you lean on it, the more it wakes up. Honda built this thing as a celebration of the company's 50th anniversary, but also as a celebration of everything that Mr. Honda loved. He loved machines that just did their job, but he also had a passion for motorsport. And that's partly why the company went into Formula One, it's partly why the company went into motorcycle racing, and it's partly why their stuff was so successful, because when they put their mind to a task, when his engineers were allowed to focus on one thing above all, they did and continue to do it really well. The origin story here is part of what makes this car so great. Honda was in Formula One multiple times. They built a mid-engine sports car in the early 90s with the help of Ayrton Senna. They have done things like this, but when they spit this car out in 1999, it was almost a shock. It was so much a shock that the concept car that preceded it in 1995 looked remarkably like this. Nobody saw it coming. Everybody said, oh well, that's pretty great. They're not going to build it, but it's great. And then they built it, and it was great. When these things were new, relatively few people cared about them. They only sold 60,000 cars over 10 years. Pretty sure Ford made more F-150s than that last Wednesday. Now, today, things are a little different. These cars are very much in demand. A lot of them were backed off the road sideways or thrown away at track days or just driven into the ground because you can do that with an S2000. And so good ones are rare. Good ones like this, an early AP1. First generation of the car had the higher red line, has slightly more involving motor, are even more rare. They're worth having, but they're also worth driving. You don't buy one of these to park it. When you're buying an S2000, you will hear 6 letters come up over and over. If you go into the forums, that's all they'll be filled with. If you look at parts, people will go, do you have this or that? This is an AP1, that is an AP2. AP1 means first generation, AP2 means second generation. It's just Honda internal designation for the cars. The first gen car had a 9,000 RPM red line and made 240 horse. The second gen car was a 2.2 instead of a 2-liter and made 9 more pound-feet of torque at a much larger area under the curve, made more torque over a wider area. It was easier to drive quickly. But the main difference between the two cars, besides displacement, is in the rear suspension. So the chief engineer on this car was a guy named Shigeru Urihara. And Uehara was also involved with the Integra Type R and the Acura NSX. And if there's one thing you need to know about Uehara, it's that he liked his cars loose. And by loose, I mean oversteer, I mean sideways, I mean go into a corner backwards, exit the corner backwards. That's how we love to drive. The rear suspension on these cars is set up for that. The AP2 was slightly tame because too many people were backing the cars into ditches. One of the things that changed on the AP2 is toe change under compression, what they call bump steer. There is a kit you can put on an AP1 to make it handle like an AP2, but it depends on your personality, depends on how hard you drive it, depends on whether or not you see the limit. Personally, I don't mind an AP1. A lot of racing drivers like an AP1, a lot of them like an AP2. It's academic. Pick the one that has the red line you want. If you want the high, fast, zingy one, go for that. If you want the one that makes more torque and doesn't require as much revving, go for that. They're both great cars.
The S2000 has always been a well-respected car due to its agile handling, reliability, and timeless looks. An AP1 car like this, in number 3, good condition, has consistently fetched around $15,000 from early 2013 through early 2020, though values do appear to be on the rise. As always, values change over time, so please go to Hagerty.com/valuation tools in order to get the most detailed and up-to-date information.
I'm in third gear at 60 miles an hour. I'm not into the cam. $6.5 grand in second. That's what it sounds like. It's a symphony. You listen to that noise with your eyes closed. You are Ayrton Senna. You are James Hunt. You are 1,000 other people, whether they drove for Honda or not. It's just this generic, wonderful dream of motorsport, and the car talks to you. I've wanted one for a long time, and I don't own one, probably because I'm stupid. And that brings us to the final question, right? Should you buy one? Well, depends on what you want to do with it. If you want to hang on to it and wax it with a diaper and put it in your garage and think about Mr. Honda's legacy and everything he meant and everything that they did in Formula One, okay, sure, fine. It's kind of like appreciating a really good appliance, except this is more than an appliance. If you want to buy one to go run track days and autocrosses and just rail the hell out of your local mountain road, well, that's great for that. Won't ask much of you. You'll probably have a great time with it, and when you go to sell it, if you go to sell it, you might not, because you might like it a lot, but when you go to sell it, you'll get decent money out of it. What if you want to just go find a road somewhere and just ramp into VTEC over and over and over and over and over again like a jerk? You can do that, and it's perfect for it, and it makes all the noise in the world. It makes you feel like a hero. People took these cars for granted for a long time because they made a decent number of them and kind of everywhere. And they're not kind of everywhere anymore. And people who have them are hanging on to them. People don't let go of things that are great.